computer
This is super cool, by the way. Do you guys do this often?
every week.
Oh, nice. Very
Yeah,
cool.
it is cool. It's nice to have a group of like-minded people to get together with and
For sure.
encourage you and help each other out. But I just want to introduce you. I've talked to you before. Obviously, we've done a TikTok live, and I like to tune into all your stuff because I am doing my part in trying to bring awareness to this 12,000 year cycle that humanity is facing. A lot of people are still with their head in the sands, or they're just not exactly clear on the magnitude of what we're
Sure.
facing. So I felt like inviting you tonight to talk to the good people and give us what you got.
Yeah, sure. Just give me one sec. I'm going to plug in my computer.
Yeah. So, and like, if you guys have questions, feel free to type them in the chat or just hold on to them.
All right, cool. So my name's Steve. I am a Creative Society volunteer. Nice to meet all you guys. Thanks for joining. Thanks for having me, I should say. Um, the Creative Society is an international public movement in 180 different countries right now, millions of volunteers. I'll start off by saying that we pride ourselves in zero financial backing, and everything is done on a strictly volunteer basis. So, no ties to government, no ties to any sort of financial institutions, no big donors. Everything is done by strictly participants. So it's uh it's quite cool because you don't even really see major corporations being able to pull off some of the productions that we've been doing, how especially as frequent as we're doing them. But essentially, what we're trying to do is two things right now. Excuse me. The first one is bringing awareness of the 12,000 year cycle of cataclysms. Now, there are a few people right now that are extremely close with this concept. Those people are people that are being extremely shunned from mainstream archaeology, such as Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson. Graham Hancock has a show out on Netflix actually called Ancient Apocalypse. I don't know if any of you guys have seen it.
I don't know if I've seen it, but I think I've heard of it.
Yeah, I highly recommend checking it out. It's super cool if you're into ancient civilizations and like the megalithic structures that they've built. And, you can look at some of that stuff and be like, we're told by mainstream archaeologists that we came from sticks and stones. And yet, buildings dated thousands and thousands of years ago, we should not have had the technology or the capacity to build these things, yet they exist. And on his show, he explains how they tell a story. And this story goes back to the Younger Dryas period or our last ice age, which they jump back and forth. I'd say normally it's around like 11,800, 12,600 years ago. So right in that 12,000 year mark was the period of great floods and our last ice age. So this is actually just like we can imagine. Our bodies go through cycles. Our Earth goes through cycles. Our solar system goes through cycles. Our galaxy and our whole universe is a cyclical nature, right? So normally we only study these cycles that we can, you know, see right here on our own planet. But essentially, what we're trying to do is bring awareness to this. And then on the other coin, we see what happens when people tell the truth. We understand that smear campaigns are a very real thing worldwide. Just look at any of the people that came out that had power and influence that tried to say something that would shake the mainstream narrative and actually shake the power system, right? That's the biggest thing, right? Because what we've also been doing
You heard
is
of Steve Caston?
what's that?
Somebody might not have been muted and they were saying your name.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay.
Carry
Yeah.
on.
So essentially, we understand what happens behind the scenes. We understand puppets, we understand puppet strings, and we understand the people who hold the strings. So another thing that we are trying to do is explain the tactics that threaten our democracy right now. And essentially, what are some underlying reasons about why America is experiencing such turmoil at the moment. So we can get into that as well if that's something you guys want to talk about, or we can just stick with the cycle of cataclysms. But
Let's go into it all, man. We're ones who like to go into things over in this bunch.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess I can put it in brief and then leave the floor open for some questions, because if this is your guys' first time hearing about it, it's some wild shit. I'm not gonna lie. It's pretty trippy that we are living in these times. So essentially, I'm sure if you guys have been browsing the internet or you share a similar news feed as mine, you see the immense amount of flash floods, the
Oh, we just
hurricane.
had
Say it again.
no, speaking of the devil, Steve, I just got a notification here in Wisconsin. Residents were told to flee because the Manawa Dam is imminent collapse because they're having a flash flood.
Right.
They're having extreme, what does it say here? It says, due to the amount of water, the dam isn't safe. So if you're downriver, please evacuate due to the Wapaka County having flash flooding and extreme thunderstorms right now, producing rain.
So we can imagine that there will be a time in our very near future where all of us sitting on this stream right now will have a notification just like that on our phone simultaneously. And not only that, but we will need to not just say, "Oh, look, a notification." We will say, "Oh, well, what do I have to do right now? Where do I go?" Right? And this is because the energy that is causing all of these cataclysms to take place is not going to go away until there is a mainstream advancement in quantum physics. This is another topic that we bring up. It's not really the main part of the discussion, but we do make our main goal and objective is to, one, get the planet to understand what's happening, and two, unify our world's best scientists at one round table so that they can be presented the information that we have. Now, the reason for these things, and I know that there's 1,001 stories out there about why these things are happening. What seems to be the mainstream reason is CO2. What seems to be the opposing mainstream reason is everything is man-made and this is just a big hoax.
That's what I
And
hear
that,
all the time.
of
Is that
course,
people think it's hard, and I understand because that is a real thing. Like geoengineering is real,
sure,
and they do use weather manipulation. We understand, but this is not that. This is far beyond anything that we as humans control. I think this actually has them afraid because they've known about this and they're
yes,
planning, but they're not planning to tell us until it's too late.
indeed.
So anyway, sorry.
That's okay.
Behaving this time.
That's okay. Whenever you want a button. So they indeed know. Maybe the puppets don't know. Maybe the strings don't know, but those who hold them absolutely know. Now, we're seeing these flash floods. We're seeing this increase in hurricanes and strength in tornadoes. We're seeing an increase in earthquakes. We're seeing volcanic eruptions almost every other week at this point. This takes a massive and insane amount of energy. I think HARP can produce something like 3.6 megawatts. Now, if you take a category 5 hurricane, you're talking about maybe thousands, if not millions of years to produce that energy. We're also seeing deep focused earthquakes. which we're talking anywhere between 300 and 800 kilometers deep underground. That goes far beyond the Earth's crust, which means you're talking about explosions in magma. Now, that is something even mainstream science can't necessarily explain. We gave a good explanation at Global Crisis, The Responsibility, which was an international online forum. But essentially, what I'm saying here is there are pockets of extremely varying temperatures of magma, and they're colliding with one another. Like, let's say you pour bacon grease in a cold cup, right, of water. Let's say you're going to get an explosion, right? So this is essentially what we're seeing in terms of earthquakes underground that go beyond the Earth's crust. Now, what is causing all of this? How is it that there's such a massive amount of energy doing all of these things simultaneously across the entire planet? Well, that certainly isn't coming from our technology. It is coming from space. It's actually an energy that we know is certain conditions that make the neutrino, which modern science has just recently discovered. And most physicists tell us that we're out of our minds and don't know what we're talking about. But we beg to differ that mainstream science has reached the same point as our physicists. So what we're trying to explain is that there's something that we don't yet understand, and we want to sit the world scientists down and explain what we know, which is going to take our entire global community to want answers. So what we're doing right now, we will look back a few years from now and be like, we were the first people that were trying to explain this and trying to get this news out to people, which I hold people that are open-minded to even have this discussion of the highest standard, because we are talking about the end of our planet. And this is because a cosmic energy that we pass through every 12,000 years in our solar system is not going anywhere, right? And essentially what this does is, because the structure of a neutrino, it passes through our crust, it passes through the magma, and it hits our Earth's core. Because it is so dense, you can imagine an X-ray, right? An X-ray passes through your skin, your muscle tissue, your ligaments, and it only hits your bone because your bone is dense in comparison to the waves, right? So you get an image of your skeleton, right? Now, in our case here, it hits the Earth's core. The Earth's core gets charged with a massive amount of energy, and it starts to heat up. And not only does it heat up, but is actually shifting location towards the Siberian Peninsula. And if you look at the world map of global temperatures and their progress in warming, Siberia is warming 2 to 3 times faster than any other region in the world. And this is because, as the core, we can imagine the circle that I'm in, right? And we can say that this corner here by the American flag is the Siberian Peninsula. We could take the core, and if it just gets shifted, I'm inverted here, so sorry. If it just gets shifted a little bit, it's going to close the space and push the magma to the surface, right? We see these giant frozen lakes in Siberia freezing on camera within a matter of seconds. We see pictures and have videos of locals' wells boiling. Now, sorry about my dog, but essentially, this energy isn't going anywhere, and we pass through it every 12,000 years. So the reason why quantum physics is so important is because we need to explain why at this level what we can do in order to block this cosmic influence, so to speak. Now, if we imagine, if there's heat, we all know heat rises, right? And because the magma around the core gets heated, it starts to rise to the surface. Now, it essentially causes an expansion of the Earth. which is why we're seeing new seams in our Earth's crust, right? We're seeing it in Africa, we're seeing it in Mexico, we're seeing it in the United States, where the Earth is literally just splitting and new fault lines are being made. This is because the Earth is literally expanding, right? Heat expands. Now, at the same time, we're going to see earthquakes because of the pressure on our Earth's crust. At the same time, our Earth's natural cooling mechanism, believe it or not, is to create CO2. What is the biggest output of CO2 that the Earth can make? Volcanoes. So there is a release of pressure through the volcanoes and a creation of CO2, which also causes ice ages, right? Which causes a cooling effect.
Cooling, yeah.
Right. Now, we have mainstream science saying CO2, CO2 until they throw up, right? But they don't talk about all of these other factors. They just say, things are warming, period, and it's this, right? Now, here's the thing. We as a team, volunteers of the Creative Society, we understand that those people that are saying that, they're at the highest levels of influence. They're the ones essentially that right now are saying who does what and what goes where and where the earth is really like dictating its resources. So we are not coming out and saying, F that, it's not CO2, you're all wrong, you're all wrong. What we're saying is, yes, there is a factor of CO2, and it has to do with our oceans. Because our oceans' health has been destroyed via hydrocarbons, microplastics, and the oil industry, our ocean's health can no longer sustain the cooling mechanism that it previously had the last 12,000 year cycle or the one before that. The oceans were healthy and they mitigated the heat caused from the rise of magma, right? So now, because our oceans can't do that, what happens is we've reached this global boiling state where now if our oceans reach a certain point, they begin to evaporate into the atmosphere. And because of all these hydrocarbons and microplastics, and God knows what else they're spraying in the sky, the moisture is getting trapped. And now you see flash floods like no other because the moisture needs to go somewhere. So gravity takes it on down. And now we have a year's worth of rain dropping on cities within 24 hours. Now we see dams breaking. For example, in Libya last year, over 20,000 people were killed because their dam broke. And you're talking about 100,000 plus people having just their homes destroyed and needing to move, right? And a lot of those people died in their sleep, right? So we don't know when these events are going to hit, right? You could go to sleep tonight and then there could be an earthquake and you wake up to your house shaking, right? The last time I'm in New York, we don't get earthquakes, not like that, right? And a category near a category 5 hit in Jersey, and I was actually laying on the floor meditating, and I thought my boiler kicked on. And then I realized the vibrating of my house was getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And me and my wife we're very aware of what's going on. So I stand up real quick. I'm looking for my like 72-hour survival bag. And I'm like, it's here. We got to go. And all of a sudden it stopped. So
What
my
was your
point is,
plan?
the reason why I bring that up is if we don't know, we will be very unprepared. And if we're unprepared, our likelihood of having a plan of action is going to be very, very slim. And we're not going to see some survival specialist or some person that understands these events come on mainstream news networks and say, hey guys, this is what we're going through. This is how you want to prepare. This is the things that you want to think about. So these are also things that we are trying to educate people on. And just a disclaimer here, guys, I'm a martial arts instructor. I'm just a regular ass dude I do not have a formal education in these things, but I actually care about my life and what's happening in the world. So I've done the best I can to educate myself. And this is the information that I've come across. So I know that that's kind of like I'll finish with saying that the extremes, it is I'm not going to use the term doubling, but it is a compounding effect, meaning that every year we're talking about higher frequency and higher magnitude of these instances. So, based off of all of our analytics and the progression at which these things are rising, we predict within 4 to 7 years, we will be dealing with a global collapse of society. So our goal is within those next few years is to expose the truth about these events and why they're actually happening. And two, protect democratic processes so that people don't get persecuted for telling the truth. So right now in America, we are seeing extremes be created. The reason being is a simple divide and conquer strategy. If citizens are arguing amongst themselves and blaming this group or that group for the problems we are experiencing, it is very easy for a third party to come in and start labeling these groups as extremists that are a threat to democracy or terrorist organizations and now you're talking, oh, they're a national security
They're a
threat.
cult. That's what they
Cults.
like to call me, a cult
Exactly.
leader. I'm like, I'm
Exactly.
not a cult leader. I just love people, man. I want to see us win. I don't want to see us all disappeared if we don't have to be. Like, how's that wrong?
Right.
Jesus tried to
Right.
help them too, man.
And I mean, it's the very reason, what he did is he came in and he broke the matrix. He came in and
I
he set
do.
people free and their ability to not rely on the system, not to rely on an authority, not to rely on a mommy and daddy figure, but to think freely for themselves. And not only freely, but to respect everyone and love everyone. And guys, this is exactly what they fear because it's this sort of thing that will set all of us free,
It is.
right? And essentially, what's going to happen when all of these instances rise? People want to know what's going on. And then they take creative society participants like they did in several other countries already and throw us in jail because we are saying things
But
that
they don't want hit the public because like I truly feel like they're sitting on the information until it's completely to the point of no escape because they can't control people. If people know what's happening, we're going to want to be proactive in making changes right now to try and make it less carnage, right? So
absolutely.
they want us going to work, doing what we're doing, paying our taxes, playing the game with them until it's hit to the point where we have no power over anything. We're just honestly, it could be the Depop, because that could be what they just say, let them go. I don't know, but people don't realize that their masters aren't going to tell them what's coming, but they're all building bunkers. They are. So, what are they trying to escape from?
Well,
Who
that's the thing
knows?
is they're going to put themselves closer to magma. So,
Let them.
there's no escape from it. And
So
I'm
it's going
going
to
to
be
go
that
ahead and say that
catastrophic, right? Based on
what's that?
you have at the society independent scientists. So nobody is bought or paid for or sponsored by any corporate fat cat. So it's not corrupted because it's private funded. So what do your scientists say is the magnitude of what we're actually facing? Like extinction level? Really? Ooh, that gave me chills. No lie,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
Extinction level. Is that because like, so I sent you a video the other day of the fault line outside of Meeteetse, Wyoming, which is 100 miles from Yellowstone.
Sure.
And that guy had to take all his videos down.
Yep.
They told him, get these
Yeah.
videos off the internet.
Right.
And so, poor kid, he's like this young man just trying to explain why his road is moving. It's like his property's busting open. And so they put the fear in him and to quiet him down. But where I was going with that is this is a super volcano. Yellowstone is a huge deal. And there's another super volcano that has been upticking in activity. And so these super volcanoes, is that what it's going to be because it's expanding to the point of that, or
Well,
what do the scientists at the society believe?
they're all one network, right? It's kind of like, you can use your skin for an example, right? The biggest detoxification organ that we have, right? So let's say, people start spraying a bunch of chemicals on themselves to smell good or using, God knows what. And all of a sudden they have pimples or they're eating very highly toxic food. And all of a sudden they have allergic reactions. And there's not just, it's normally, spread out. It's people are more or less likely to break out on certain spots. I don't want to really get into all that. But my point is that it's one system, right? And the and what we're going to see is there's a really good chance that if one erupts, several or another will erupt. And Japan and um, Yellowstone are very closely linked. And we don't, most likely, um, we're not going to see Yellowstone right away. There's probably going to be some other activity first.
What do the scientists predict?
Well, some areas for us to really keep our eyes on are Japan, China, Korea, Italy, and the Arabian Peninsula is a place to look out for. Just because geographically these places are most susceptible to the events that are going to happen first. China is practically laying on a giant clay slab. So we don't exactly predict what's going to happen and when, but we have a good guesstimate that 4 to 7 years in these countries are most susceptible. We do know about a new fault line that will split the US in half, straight horizontally, straight across the middle. So these are some things that we will get to experience within our lifetime. And right now, 2024, we just entered the cycle, right? So if you think about 2023 and those people and these weather events, no one was talking about them. We entered the cycle on the 1st of January, 2024. And I woke up, I did a New Year's Eve. I did a New Year's Eve live, and I was telling people, hey guys, we enter the cycle in 2024. We don't know what's going to happen, but please keep your eye out. I woke up the next morning. Japan got hit with a 7.2 magnitude earthquake, and they had some tsunami warnings. Luckily, nothing happened. But since then, we're only 7 months in. We have it's like all of a sudden everyone knows, everyone sees it. We understand that something isn't right. And now imagine this worse next year and worse the following year. And if they're going to be more frequent, let's say, for example, this Hurricane Beryl, right? Right now it hit landmass, so it calmed down, but that area of water in there in between Mexico and Corpus Christi is 85-degree water. The one that hit Acapulco in Mexico last year was a Category 5. It went from a tropical storm to a Category 5 within 24 hours. So imagine this hurricane turns to a Category 5, levels Corpus Christi, and then Corpus Christi gets an earthquake soon after. Imagine, no one would be able to recover. So these are the sorts of things that we're talking about when we try and tell people to have a 72-hour survival kit, have some spare food on hand, understand these things are coming, and our best, absolute best way of preventing them is to use our voices, to speak, right? I know that it's kind of wild information. So if anybody has any feedback or questions, I'm happy to answer.
Okay, so quickly, the scientists think that this could very well be level extinction scenario for humanity. And the goal here is for us all to join in mind and demand proper response to this cycle.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think everybody watching, who comes across this video, that is your responsibility as a human soul alive right now to help understand this deeper so that we can prepare the best we can, because the people in power aren't going to prepare us. They don't care. We all know what they do to us. So it is up to us as humanity to unite, not divide, despite whatever differences we have in religions, in political beliefs, in, whatever people divide from. Now is the time for us to truly elevate beyond differences and come together for humanity, like all of our lives and our children's lives and our grandchildren's lives depend on it, right? That's important to marinate on, because we live in this day by day society and give so many fucks about anything outside of ourselves. But now, friends, we are called higher. We are being called to care for something far greater than our meaningless little lives, whether or not we have Botox, a Fendi purse, red bottoms,
Doesn't matter.
ESPN. None of that
Doesn't
is
matter anymore.
important from this cycle on, because humanity may never even be. Now, back in the day, during the last cycle, which you touched on briefly in the beginning, that cycle hit, but we weren't so polluted. We've decayed this place rapidly with our egos, basically, always needing more, always having to do the most. And so because of our own decay and our own destruction, we've created this situation to the point where the Mother Earth ecosystem, the way it's operated in the past, where it has these certain protocols to release the volcanoes and make it colder and have the oceans cool everything. We can't do that anymore because she's sick, right? So she can't survive this cycle unless we help her. And so that's the mission, friends. We have to start giving to about things that actually matter, and no about things like who's going to be the next master in the freaking house of lies that nobody cares about because they don't care about us, right? Anyway, sorry, that's my piece. Anybody watching who has a question, feel free to unmute your mic and ask away, okay? Is there anybody who has any questions?
Yes. Hello?
Okay, Angie, is that you?
Yes. Where do you think it's going? I mean, it's going to split us up the middle. I live in Missouri, so I'm in the middle. I live in the Kansas City area. How should I prepare?
I think the best thing to do is have a 72-hour survival kit. If you have routes that would be more beneficial for evacuation, just know them. For me, I have a 72-hour survival kit that's hanging behind my front door.
Oh, wow.
I also have 10 gallons of clean spring water that's in my car at all times. Clean a clean change of clothes, some spare dog food for my dogs. And it's just there. It's just there, just in case. And other than that, there's really not much we can do, and it kind of, it sucks to say that. But understand what your area is most susceptible to. For me, it could be a tsunami. So I know exactly which road I'm taking to get the highest point in the area that I'm at. It could be most likely earthquakes. So having, let's say a 5 to a 7 hits my area. My house may not crumble, but it's not safe for me to go back in my house. So that may mean I'm sleeping in my car until my house gets inspected or something like that. I don't, and that means the same thing for everybody else too. So if you hate your neighbor and you have a lot of beef with your neighbor, it's probably a really good time to squash it and leave all of that behind, because the people immediately surrounding you will be the ones you turn to in times of need. So I really like what you brought up before, because you literally just said the essence of what we are going through. And that is, nothing that has ever divided you from another person is more important than anything we are going through. All beef gets squashed today. And that's our preventative medicine right there. Because if we can have open, respectful dialogue about what's going on and not try and jump down each other's throats, we can support one another and get the truth out there. So in my eyes, I think that's how this is how I'm preparing, is by just doing this and having that stuff ready to go if need be.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Any other questions, guys? Who's next?
No questions, no.
You don't have a question, Danny?
But it's like we as people, we know what's important, but most people just can't find it, man. Like truly find it. And you reckon? Everyone knows what's important in life, but they can't really find it.
So someone like Danny, who's in Australia,
So if you make a big disaster for them, then they'll find it.
is
I can
Australia
say.
going to be like one of the areas that's watch out? Because I got a lot of people in Australia that I love.
Well,
I haven't heard
I'm
much
80
about
centimeters
Australia.
above seawater, man. So
Yeah, tsunami risk probably, huh, Danny?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that,
but we got Aboriginals here, man. They protect the whole land. We've only got 2 guns in a submarine to get meth from fucking Cambodia to here.
Jeez. Stop saying certain words, you're going to trigger people.
Oh, you're right.
On the dang algorithms, you know how these people already love to censor, but the whole point is that they're going to censor this information anyway, because they want people to look crazy, and they don't want us to look like we're actually trying to really help people. They're trying to paint people like us out as unhinged, detached from reality lunatics,
Right.
who are
Right.
fear mongers, which I'm not
Yep.
a fear monger. I don't have an ounce of fear in my whole big old 5'10" vessel. I don't have fear. I have an understanding of a need and logic and reason, and I can tell by what's going on using my spiritual discernment that there is something massive coming. It's looming. It's an energy that's, you can just feel it moving in. And maybe
Sure.
it is that cosmic energy
It
that
is.
we're all
It
connected to.
is.
We can feel it in our waters. Like
Sure.
there's something big coming. There's something beyond us that's coming. And I feel like people think of it as like Judgment Day. They think of it as Armageddon, but it's coming and we feel it in our intuition. And then we see things like the massive amount of flooding happening. Like that is abnormal. The earthquakes, abnormal. This stuff isn't normal. So people are starting to notice, like you said, but I think their cognitive dissonance and their
Sure.
desire to dismiss the reality for what it is so that they can just go back and put their blinders on and
Yeah.
act like they don't see it so that they don't have to take action towards something.
Yeah. And you
It
can,
is the main problem.
it's quite funny because, whether it's Islam or it's, Christianity, or just prophecies of indigenous people, the behavior of people and society during end times is an exact replica of what we are seeing now. White is black, black is white, a male is a female, and a female is a male. The attempts to destroy discernment and hide truth, whether it's about our history, whether it's about what's going on currently, is at an all-time high. Propaganda and cognitive dissonance is on an all-time high, intentionally, because there is just like there is a cycle of cataclysms, there is a cycle, in the Vedics they call it the Yuga cycle, which goes from the golden age to the silver to the bronze to the iron age. Right now we are transitioning right out of the Kali Yuga, and the Kali Yuga is the end of the iron age. And this is where all moral, ethical, and spiritual values are at an all-time low. But simultaneously, there is a transition from the Iron Age into the Golden Age, which is when the truth is completely unveiled. So here, right now, we see an extreme of two sides of the same coin. People that are living in an illusion, right? And those of us that are trying to speak about the truth and come off like crazy people to those that are still in the illusion. So right now, because the illusion is what is mainstream, the illusion is what runs this world. And because we are breaking ourselves out of that to at least start manifesting some inkling of this golden age, we are called crazy. We're called crazy by our friends. We're called crazy by our families, by our coworkers. And we have to do this because we have to find people like us. And when I started meeting other Creative Society participants, they're all like this. They all want to see that golden age. They all love humanity. And the fact that some of the world's best physicists are behind this project, are bringing free energy technologies, are bringing breakthroughs in quantum physics. These are the things we need for the golden age. We are living in that transition from the iron to the golden age right now. But the question is, do we deserve it? Do we deserve that golden age? And that's the essence of the cycle. Squash all beef now. Become a united civilization now. A type 1 civilization is, right now we're a global community. We're not even a civilization yet. A type 1 civilization is free energy technology in a world democratic process. It's a world without rulers, which essentially is the anarchy is really a world without rulers. It's not chaos. Yeah. So we need some of these things in order to become a united civilization, which is why Creative Society is also unveiling the mind control methods that destroy democratic processes. Because in order for this golden age and this united humanity to take place, in order for us to not be put in jail because people think we're crazy, we have to expose these methods of mind control. So We actually have, he's not a participant, but he is our official spokesperson in the national defense sector of things. His name is Dr. Agon Chalakian. And he has quite an extensive past in this field, but he's been undergoing an investigation for the last 10 years. And essentially, just to just to throw more on top of you guys, by 2028, there is a plan to have the United States fully infiltrated and a plan for civil war by 2028. So right
I
now,
see them laying the groundwork for that one.
absolutely, absolutely. The groundwork is create a country who hates their country, create citizens that have no patriotism, that want to see everything crumble, and there's no replacement. And then also to take those two extreme parties we were talking about in the beginning, and this isn't necessarily right or left or red or blue, this is just creating these ideals that conflict with one another so that those two sides would argue. It would get so hairy and so messy that both sides just want out of it. And then here comes the person on the horse saying, hey, I'm going to save the country. I'm going to help everyone. And that's the person that brings in totalitarian dictatorship. So you get people desperate for a new leader. This is what happened in World War II in Germany. Germany was at an all-time low. And you know who came in with his charisma? I can't even say his name on social media, winds up getting me in trouble. But this is literally our history, right? You can't bring up world history. But yes, exactly. So, and then look what happened there, right? And maybe some good things did happen in the country in terms of, economic wealth or, but that far, it does not exceed anything that happened within that country. But the point is, you create these desperate times. So both parties blame each other, not even realizing that it was an opinion that was pushed upon them. So Dr. Agon Chalakian did a 3-hour intel video on agonreport.org, EGON report.org. He explains not only how these methods of mind control work, but he used where our scientists come from, the electrophysicists. He used the Alatra organization as an example of how they infiltrate within the police. I don't know what you would call them, within the police authorities, within religious authorities, and how they have ties into government, into local news networks, into journalism. And he breaks down their tracks on how they took creative society participants and made them illegal in those countries, to the point where, their doors were stormed open, eating dinner with their families, and arrested and beaten. And essentially, the activities of creative society are now illegal in those countries. You can't say creative society. So this tells me, one, we're on the right track.
Yeah,
We're
that
doing
makes
the
me
right
want to
thing.
say it more. When somebody tells me you can't talk about that and that's bad
Right.
information, it's like makes me want to be
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary.
Right.
Because then you're onto something, and that's the nature of the state, is to just keep the true information from the people, because when the people get the knowledge, the people get the power, because knowledge is power. And so, good friends, all the more reason for us to continue on this effort. Okay, we must continue to focus on what we need to do for this cycle. And I know you guys that regularly watch me, you've heard me talk more and more about pull yourself out of the conspiracy rabbit holes, pull yourself off the political trains, pull yourself together, gather and grab all your pieces, build your soul, basically, get your shadow work done, get through all of your, whatever it is, heal, and then start making progress to do something that could actually benefit us during the cycle, because no one else is going to prepare you. Learn how to survive. You know, if you don't know how to hunt, you think that the grocery stores are going to be full? You're absolutely out of your freaking mind. You better take up archery or practice your shot, because there's not going to be any food on the shelves, friends. You fought over toilet paper. Guess what? Well, we're gonna have to get creative now. Okay. So these are the things that we can build on, you know, like how we can get back to being humans again, away from like all of the natural grid stuff, because there's a good chance when all this pops up, would you agree, Steve, that the grid is going to be one of the first things to go?
So one of our participants, he, and I could also refer you guys to another link other than Aegon's website, but the Neutrino Energy Group, NUETRINO Energy Group. They are Creative Society participants and the inventors of the Neutrino Energy Cube. This is free energy technology. No plugs, no grid, no nothing. A cube that looks like a microwave that sits in your house. Now, you guys can read all about the technology on their website, and more importantly, read their morals and ethics tab, which is their mindset on where humanity should be going. Because essentially what we can't have is free energy technology come out and it only be owned by the few. And we still wind up paying for energy and they just have an unlimited source of it. So this is another reason why the Creative Society is trying to present other ways of us becoming a united civilization so that all people have access to this free energy. Yes, that's it. Thank you, Dennis. So all of us have access to free energy technology. These things, there are already contracts signed for factories to start producing these in mass quantity. And once these things hit the market, this is like the first iPhone coming out. The entire world and the standards of the industry will have to change and adapt to the new technology. So I don't think that we are going to find ourselves in this sort of state because this technology is already here. It already exists. We have plenty of interviews with the inventor and the owner of the company on our YouTube page, Creative Society YouTube page. And then we also have another documentary that I highly recommend you guys watch. It's called Water from Air. The popular science film, I think they called it. Essentially, what this is about atmospheric water generators. This is a short-term solution to mitigate the storms that we're seeing. This moisture that makes its way from the boiling oceans or the evaporating oceans that sits inside our atmosphere is a big reason for increased hurricanes, tornadoes, flash floods, all of these extremely damaging storms. Well, it's because there's too much water in the air. That's free water for the entire planet.
Yeah.
All we need is the appropriate technology, which already exists. They're called atmospheric water generators. They exist and they work. This is like a dehumidifier for the planet instead of your living room, right? I don't know if people still use those things, but right, it takes all the moisture out of your basement. It's got that giant ass thing in the back that you got to dump out all the water in. Well, now imagine you take all of that moisture out of the air. It filters it so there's no microplastics, no heavy metals, no shit that they spray in the sky. Everyone has free water. And now we start this on an industrial scale worldwide, and you start mitigating cataclysms. So
like
not
you're
only do
talking
we
about my
solve the
vision of-
world's, what's that?
Sorry. I feel like you're talking about my vision of New Earth. Like I have a vision of Earth for the future, and I feel like you're talking about that.
We're going there. It's the golden age is around the corner.
I feel like we are. I feel like that's like the vision is where we don't have overlords. We have united people across all planes. We have free energy, free services, and we just live abundantly, beautifully, free from the shackles of the oppressive nightmare that we find ourselves in this necropolis. So,
Yeah.
sorry I interjected there, but I feel like what
That's
you're
okay.
saying is like already in my mind's eye. So it's like, wait,
Yeah.
this guy sees what I see? What?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
There's 180 countries and millions of other people that see what you see. It's a beautiful
Got the
thing.
vision, man.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
can see it. All we
Yeah,
got
for
to do
sure.
is get through this little hiccup of the
That's it.
cataclysms. That one's going to be they'll speed
Sure.
bump. We just got to get over that
Yeah.
small hurdle before and not go extinct, right?
Well, we have to mature. We have to
Mhm.
get off the playground and stop arguing about who's the leader.
Oh gosh,
And
yeah.
it's why our last forum was called Global Crisis: The Responsibility. And another one was called Our Survival is in Unity, because we are stewards of the garden. And we have sprayed GMOs as an analogy all over the fucking place.
Oh god.
And we drank some of it and poisoned our souls and our hearts and our minds. And this is why this happens. So if you want to look for a spiritual reason about the cycle, it's to rid the universe of parasites
Oh my
so
god.
that only the worthy can continue to go about their business. So we have that chance. And I see it. I know what
So
humans are capable of.
what I just heard, Steve, in my spiritual language, is basically all the lower vibrational things and people and aspects that we've created are going to be purged, and the higher vibrational, fertile, abundant energy, because it's all energy, right?
Sure.
Is going to be remaining and elevated, right?
Yeah. I think there was a that is the shift, right? That I guess a lot of new age spirituality would say from 3D to 5D, but and like, oh, some people are going to get left here and some of us are going to, move on. And like, there's like a lot of really weird,
Yeah, I get
um,
them. I get those types too.
yeah.
I'm
But
just
all
saying,
the things that no longer serve us.
I'm just saying, like, it's basically the dead things because, like, spiritually, if somebody is not in touch with their soul, they're not in touch with their discernment, they're not in touch with Christ consciousness, which would be one of unity, love,
Sure.
betterment of all living things, or a dark energy, which is just serve self, serve whatever I can and destroy
What we've been
whatever's in my
taught.
path. So there's like two different paths that a person, individual person can take, right?
Yeah.
So the people who are choosing the one path, that's fine, but that's the choice that we kind of got us all here is by
Sure.
choosing to feed that darker spirit that's in all of us instead of choosing to feed that higher spirit. So the
Yeah.
shift I feel is coming with all of the stuff that is not conducive to helping mother maintain her balance in so that these cycles are not as cataclysmic, like destructive as they are going to be if we continue at the pace that we're going. So it's like
Sure.
basically her, like you said, getting rid of the parasites because a dog's going to shake the fleas off, right? So yeah. Do you mind taking any questions? Does anybody have any questions? I seen you, Michael, like kind of raise your hand. I wanted to know if you had something to say.
Hey, Stephen, thanks for showing up for us tonight. Nice to meet you, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, guys.
One of the things, and you were talking about it, because I've been trying to do this in very subtle ways, is talk to my neighbors on either side, and it's very difficult. I don't know. I just like you say, without getting like, I don't know, you still got to get along with people. We live right next door to each other. And I talked to my neighbor and I said, geez, I said, do you do anything like maybe save some food? I mean, you got a couple of kids over there. I mean, I don't mean poking your business, but it's a lot of crazy stuff going on. Oh yeah, no, we get enough stuff, but we're not really too worried about it. It's just one of those things,
Sure.
And then I talked to my other neighbor. I kind of get the same thing, And
Yeah.
I don't know. You can't go against resistance. You can't
Sure.
force feed anybody. I mean, what are your ideas on talking to people? Because I've been trying a lot of different things. And again, I know that I can't change people's minds. I get
You're
that.
right.
You're only, again, it's like Melody, the teacher appeared when I was ready, right? 4 years ago, whatever it is, 3 years ago. And, you know, she just kind of, whoa, it just changed my world. But, you know, you have to be open to that. And you have to have an
Absolutely.
open heart and an open mind. And
Yeah.
I don't know how you foster that. And I agree with you that I would like to. Actually, there's someone in the group. I don't even know if she's here tonight. I'm trying to get her to call me because I'm trying to hook up with people. I want to make some hookups.
Yeah.
You know, just to try to anything. Like you say, I don't want to be helpless and I don't want to be hopeless. And I
Sure.
certainly want to be the guy. Now, I prepare as best as I can. But I mean, again, like if my neighbor with those kids came to me, and I know they're probably not preparing it, and they need water, how do I turn them away? I couldn't. Me and Jane have talked about this a million times. What do you do? I don't. I couldn't just turn away people that were hungry. I just have
Right.
a real hard time with that, and that's probably why I won't survive because I'm too generous to a certain degree. No, not too generous. I like to share and I like to help, and I don't know. It's a tough thing when things hit the fan and you're making preparations and others are not. Like again, my brother, for example, I get so frustrated with him. I'm just like, Jerry, a hurricane, a storm, anything, power goes down. I said, you should be ready for something like that. Never mind cataclysms, never mind that the world's going to shit. You should be ready for that anyway. I don't know why people are so resistant to that. Maybe it's just that they can't think about it, or I don't know. I don't know. I mean, what would you do if it's your neighbor, right? You've tried to talk to them as best as you can. You know, they're kind of, you know, where they're at.
Sure.
And, you know, the shit hits the fan and their kids are starving and you got food and they don't. What do you do? I don't know, man. I don't know if I got the heart to turn them away. I really don't. I don't know if
I
I got
don't.
to turn them away. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You know, I think there's two parts to that. And you bring up a lot of really good points. There are some people where they will deny it even when it's right in front of their face. They will never accept that they are living in the reality that they're living in. And this is just because it endows responsibility once you know the truth. And our egos will give us every excuse under the sun to not have to pick up ourselves by our bootstraps, not to, we just blame it on somebody and go on with our lives, or distract us with entertainment, food, drugs, whatever you want to do it with, you know. And you can try and beat those people over the head, but they're not the ones that will ever listen. So I think if you want to maintain your relationships with your family and your friends, those are normally the ones that don't listen, because you
Oh,
can't be a
definitely.
prophet in your own home.
No.
You can't.
No.
So for me, that was a hard lesson learned. They know now, and that's it. I did my part. They don't ask questions. They don't care. They're too consumed with their lives. They would rather, you know, just go about business and avoid all troubles in the world. And that's their choice. And, you know, back to what Melody was saying, right? Like, we have to, there has to be a certain maturity that,
You always got to be a student, man.
yeah, exactly.
First.
Gotta be willing to listen.
Even the dumb
Gotta
cunt
be
next
willing.
door, you still got to learn off him somehow.
Yeah.
I did want to bring this up, guys. One thing, and it's
You
a
really
real
do.
easy read, and Jane got this. It's called The Art of War. It's a super easy read. If you, this is actually about mind control, really. If you,
For sure.
you know, read it,
Yeah.
it's a super easy read. You can see what they're doing to us. That's why they all have this book. All the people that dominate us, they
Sure.
go by this book. It's a super easy read. Pardon me, Dan? What did you say, Danny? I missed that. I'm sorry. That's it. I'll shut up. I'll mute myself again.
Melody, you might be on mute.
I think you're muted, Nelly.
Oh, I am muted. See, it's not just you, Danny. I'm muting people to maintain some kind of order because I don't want mutiny. And you know how we can get, and everybody can get to talking and everybody adding in their stuff. I really just want to keep, you know, it very clean because it's being recorded. And for other people's observation, I don't want them to, at this point in the conversation, be like, okay, it got crazy and we lost, you
Oh
know,
yeah,
we
the
lost the
swearing.
plot.
Man.
So.
Sorry.
Yeah, so anyway,
We
I
say that
appreciate
word
you
every
sharing
second
that
word
book.
over
I
here.
appreciate you sharing that book with us, Michael. Absolutely, it is a good read, just like Yost Merlu's Rape of the Mind or those other things. If people are still caught in that area of it, which I think people who maybe come across this are going to be a little bit pulled out of that by this point. Hopefully, fingers crossed, people still aren't going around the fucking rabbit hole of trying to figure out what mind control is and how it works. But yeah, that is definitely helpful to have those kinds of books. But taking it back to Steve, and any other questions for Steve, I think, you know, that was a great response. We can't control other people. You know, nobody believes anybody if they know you, especially because then they look at you as like a mere mortal. And so I run into this as well. Like people are like, I know her, there's nothing special about her, she's just like this really weird lady. It's like, okay, yeah, but you don't know me. Like, you know me as my personality, but you really don't know me in the way that you think you do. And so we're just automatically dismissed by people who feel like they know us because they've had an exchange with us, or they've worked with us, they live next door to us, and they've heard us get onto our kids, and they've heard us do human things like seen us out there weeding our garden or whatever. They're like, oh, that's just a regular person. Who are they to tell what's coming? It's like, okay, well, just wait and see then. So I think that's something that we all face, Michael. And at the end of the day, I think you can make the judgment call whether or not you're in a position to share with others. But here's the thing, if we, all of us, hone in on skill set like understanding foraging, understanding water purification, understanding how to do your own food and do this and do that, you're going to be a great asset because you could teach the many, right? So you'll be able to teach and help in that way by giving them skill and direction. So I think not to get too worried about others, but focus more on building ourselves into our max capacity and evolving ourselves into the most powerful, badass souls that we can be, that are going to be grounded and can face any trial or tribulation. Keep a level head about us. Don't lose the chaos and get caught up in the waves of emotion that are going to be going on around us, but be centered and grounded and listen to our guidance and our intuition and really understand who we are going into all of it. I think that's our greatest gift to others, my opinion. But any other questions for Steve? I know that Shaz, you were saying that somewhere in Canada is also flooding. In Alberta,
Yeah, well,
Calgary,
Steve, do you
Alberta.
reckon that ice ages, they might do another ice age? Yeah, you reckon?
Who's they? No one's doing this. This is
No,
a
the mother.
natural.
Us.
Yeah,
We're going to do another ice age?
No, this is probably going to be a lot hotter than ice this time around. We're going to be burnt.
Yeah.
We're
Probably
burnt,
fire. It's fire.
buddy.
We will Earth will look like Mars. Mars suffered the same fate at the end of the last 12,000 year cycle. They've told us that Mars, you know,
but not just physically, but metaphysically as well, is what I'm saying. You know what I mean? It's going to get cold, man. It's not going to get.
Sure,
get cold.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. You know, but you know,
like
we think about our greatest times of evolution. It's never been a good time. You know, we all have gone through some form of pain and suffering, and we come out the other side of the tunnel a much better person if you learn to learn from those things, right? It's going to be like that. Let's call it the dark night of the soul for the whole planet. And
That's my vibe. You're speaking in my language right now, bro. Like, I think we're aligned with the same message with this cataclysmic cycle. It doesn't necessarily have to be all bad, but it's a beautiful opportunity for us to realign ourselves with a new path as far as humanity and the trajectory of what we care about and what's important and what we
We don't have a
allow.
choice. We
Boom.
don't have a choice.
Good.
So, you know, the thinnest part of the earth of its crust is the Mariana Trench. Um, if we see a breakthrough of the Mariana Trench, the what the scientists call a cavitational explosion will destroy the atmosphere. And that will be it within, you know, a matter of a few minutes. We'll have Mars on our hands. So 2036 is the date for that. So we probably won't be around to see that happen. But within the next 4 to 7 years, we really need to do a lot of good.
Why
We
won't
have
we be around to see that happen? What are you saying here, Steve?
because the time from the next, let's call it 4 to 7 years until 2036, the cataclysms will be so great there won't be any more people left. So there's a good chance that we won't live to see that day.
You feel like there'll be no survivors after the intense cataclysm set in?
0.
Really? Where are you getting that number? Because you would think that there could be one, like maybe hiding behind a bush or something. Just a few to repopulate, but no.
Well, you can imagine, let's call it like a mega tornado. It's a sandblaster. You're talking about, you know, buildings crumbling into rubble and it deteriorating everything in its path.
Vaporized?
Vaporized. I wouldn't say
There's-
vaporized, but if you know how a sandblaster works, it can do a lot of damage. Now imagine that, you know, on a scale that we've never seen before. It's because of this massive amount of energy that is being produced on the planet. So unless we create a shield, this doesn't look like some science fiction movie where we, you know, shoot this giant structure out into space. It's just a form of quantum physics that you probably wouldn't even notice. We had done an experiment over in Eastern Europe and Russia with equipment, and they actually created equipment and recorded the data pre, during, and post installment. Pre-installment, we saw the area in Russia escalating cataclysms as fast as the rest of the world. The equipment was installed. It went nearly to a halt. And then when Alatra's activities became illegal, they dismantled the equipment. And a few months later, they returned back to their normal state with the rest of the world. So this kind of gave us an understanding that they were on the right track and they understand how to mitigate these sort of things. But we're talking about a level of quantum physics that if it got into the wrong hands, it would absolutely be the end. So our society needs to become a civilization first.
Yeah. Learn how to work together.
Yes.
Instead of argue over what masters
power
sit
structure
there
has
and
to
tell us
change.
lies. Yeah.
Yeah.
Baboon behavior.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So all the tools are already there.
So all we got to do is come together, good people.
That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
Come on, that's
it.
simple. You would
All the
think
solutions, free
together
energy, atmospheric
strong.
water generators, all of these things, like we are on the brink of the golden age, and all we need is people to understand what is happening and to get them to realize that. For me in the beginning, it was like, well, what are people going to think of me? They're going to think I'm crazy. They're going to think, you know, this and that. And I realized I was in my own way. I was the only person in my way. And when I made this, like, I literally made it the forefront of my whole life. I was on the last 2 international online forums which I highly, highly recommend you guys watch, is Global Crisis, The Responsibility on creativesociety.com. I have never, I mean, I'm a martial arts teacher, so I'm used to speaking in front of groups, but I'm not used to speak. First of all, you'll never see me in a suit and tie unless I'm on a forum. Second of all, I'm not used to like sitting in front of a room full of cameras or really like this, all of this information. Like I had to learn how the world actually worked in order to speak about it. I hadn't spoken about geology and since ninth grade earth science class. So I realized that there is no bigger motivation for a person than life itself. And I can say that because I'm living every day like it could be my last, I've never been happier. I've never tried to provide so much service to the people around me, to the people I know, to the people I don't know. I've never been more grateful for every breath. And I feel like when everyone knows this, they too will have that chance and put aside all the things that we spend our attention on and our energy on. 99% of it just goes out the window. And you start thinking about the most important things in your life. And that's all you do. That's all you care about, right? Are the things that actually matter. So you squash the beef, right? So you help a homeless person. So you speak to people that you don't normally speak to. So you keep a smile on your face because you're alive, right? Like when we all know this information and we all realize what's important and our outward world reflects that inward appreciation, we will reach a golden age without a doubt. But we can't be scared to speak the truth. And they will do everything in their power to make sure we don't. And that, for me, that's just not an option. So I take every opportunity I can get, and I'm really grateful for meeting you on our live, and you taking the time to introduce me to your friends. So I really appreciate your guys' time and attention, and willingness to hear the information and do your research on it. So
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to talk with us and help us understand a little bit more of the science about it. I think most of us, if they found me, they've been hearing my spiritual take on everything going on and the different feelings that I've had about things, which honestly, it surprises me to hear some of the stuff. I'm like, dude, I was like my intuition was on it. I'm like, so it's kind of confirmation for me. And I was kind of amused at the fact that there's actually a scientific backing to what I had felt was spiritually happening for the last 4 years. So when I ran across one of your videos, I was like, what the heck? This guy's like speaking, but then you were speaking from like an actual knowledge, like you'd studied, and scientists and physicists and everybody was involved. And I'm like, oh, so this is legit. Like I'm
sure.
not just a batshit crazy person, which I'm
Sure.
questioning, honestly. Sometimes we
Yeah.
have to question ourselves, but I think most of us are happy to receive the information, and we clearly do choose to take that higher path and try and unite as opposed to divide. And we went through the different levels where we went down the rabbit holes. We know that everybody is a freaking lying criminal. We know that they're all just handing it over to us without any pleasure.
Yeah.
Or it's just we've learned about all that, and now we're ready to grow and evolve into the next level. I mean, we're writing the story. We've got to change the narrative. The old script's getting old. The old Orwellian dystopia, oppressive. Let's have a new clown in the house of lies, and let's do this game. And we're burnt out with it. So
Yeah.
it's time for us to come together and write a new script. And what better script to write than one of survival through the Earth's most treacherous cycle yet? Because you were explaining that these are 12-year cycles, right? But there's also the 24-year mark, right? And that's like what we're facing is like there's an extreme cycle, and then there's like a really extreme cycle, right? And we're
in
like
that
hitting
one.
that really extreme.
Yeah. You can imagine it's one full rotation around the galaxy. So
So,
if you
yeah.
imagine, we're circling or spiraling around the galaxy, the energy goes straight through the middle at the 12 and 6 o'clock mark. So every time we pass through the bottom and then back through the top is 24,000 years, and that's where we are. And it's just because of the objects and surrounding mass allows for this energy to penetrate at a higher frequency. So 24,000 years, bad oceans.
Yeah.
We got all the odds against us. But I don't know what you guys normally talk about, but just from speaking to you, Melody, if we want to see it from a spiritual perspective, whether it's the Hindu,
Kali
Islam,
Yuga. Yeah.
um,
Yeah,
Christianity.
that's right. I just want to say that God's favorite form is a human. So we'll be all right. A human will live.
What'd he say?
He's talking about God.
I said God's favorite form is a human being. So we will live.
Well,
Did you hear me?
humans,
We might
soul-filled
not,
beings.
Danny. I don't think we might. If everything's on fire, we might.
No,
but-
God loves being a human being.
But
Well, he loves us enough to give us our choice,
yeah,
right? And on that note, it's funny you brought that up because all religions.
Christian is a human being. Yeah.
but everybody's born pagan because nobody's born with religion. We all just have an innate connection to a divine presence that is part of us. So
Right.
to sit and be asinine in our egos thinking that we have to be Christian or we have to be this or we have to be that is just more division. And at this point, we don't even need to bring that into the conversation because this is bigger than a religion. This is bigger than
Right.
a patriot flag. This is bigger than all of that.
No, I'm not talking about religion. I'm not talking about religion.
No, but that's what I'm saying. We just want to make sure that it's understood because here's what I've learned. Using those kinds of things is almost another form of affirming mind control, right? So I a lot of times it's almost like I don't even want to say God anymore because there's such a stigma around God. They're imagining in their peanut brains like this disgruntled daddy sitting in a
Mhm.
throne with a robe and like, oh, my kids were bad, I will burn them.
You're
It's like
right.
not that situation. So I just like to re-explain things, not that you were saying anything bad, but because for people who would come across this video later, their vision of God, that's going to trigger them back into programming that maybe like they are coming out of like religious programming.
Sure.
Where they hear those words again and it just like triggers that, okay, God is judging us or whatever it
Right,
does,
right.
because there's like so much weird stuff, but at the core of all of us is a divine spark of all creation. We are the universe. We're literally stars. We are just the elements thrown together in a meat suit with the divine spark or a soul that animates us. And so, yes, we are that, but also we are not that. Take away the meat suit and we still are that. So to say like God loves humans, humans are just nothing really in the overall, we're just little tiny ants marching around on something right now. It's like we are just another part of creation itself, another extension that is animated with consciousness, just like an animal would be or anything. So it's
Yeah, but our human form isn't at its ultimate level either. You know what I mean? So
exactly, that's why we're going to evolve it. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we get it. Fingers crossed, we get the memo. Fingers crossed, we pay attention to the red flags. Fingers crossed
Yep.
that we can rise out of that egoic kind of way of functioning and into the more divine, unified way of being and existing. Fingers crossed. I mean, some days I have hope, but then some days I'm completely on my knees like, oh gosh, these people are never going to get it. We're all doomed. So it goes back and forth for me. But was there any other questions about anything that Stephen said that maybe somebody might want clarity on or anything from anybody? Dennis, you had a question? Did you have a question, Dennis?
Yeah, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
How does this differ from, you're saying it's a climate crisis, but how does it differ from what the government is saying about climate change? Is it the same or is it different? Because it it seems like on your website it says something about you are going along with the UN resolution for sustainability and all that kind of stuff. Is
Sure.
that different from what you're talking about? Because I think it is, but I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
I'm kind of confused.
Yeah. So the cycle of cataclysms is based off a cosmic influence, a cosmic energy that destabilizes the core and charges the core, causing rapid magma rise,
Right.
as opposed to this anthropogenic factor only of CO2 causing the heating, right?
Okay.
So, they'll say our Earth's oceans are because of it's just too much CO2, right?
Right.
We're saying there's magma rising underneath the ocean. And that's what's causing the oceans to warm. But there is a CO2 factor because our ocean health has to do with the hydrocarbons that take place within the ocean. So um, having everybody eat bugs and killing all the cows is not going to solve our problems.
Right. Right.
Um, but there are, in words, certain plans of the UN that would logistically make sense if they were to follow through with certain things.
Right.
So we are in a position where all those people within the UN, every president, every king, every person on this planet will have to understand this information at every single level. So we have to do the best we can to reach all people. And, for a while, there was blatant, blunt, like CO2 is bullshit. Like, we got to stop talking about it. Right. And now we're changing our rhetoric, because if that's where all the money is going, is if that's where all the influence is, if that's where people making decisions are, we need to reach them. And whether or not we like them or not, and whether or not we know they're liars or not, it doesn't matter, because our lives are more important than those differences, than than that animosity towards what they're doing, and just all those lies, and doesn't matter anymore. Right.
Yeah.
All the beef, all the beef, guys, all the beef has to get squashed. So it's not that we agree with everything that they're saying, but hopefully that answers your question.
Okay. I guess you got to use them because we have to get to them anyway, even though you don't totally agree with them.
And we got to get to everybody.
Okay. But they're looking at it as a business, I think.
Of
You
course.
know, in a way, they're making profit from this climate change.
They're trying to tax. Yeah, of course. You're gonna have to pay taxes to breathe more.
Sure, that's what they want to do.
Right, right. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Nash.
Thanks for clearing that up.
Yeah, of course, brother.
So we know, but they do know that we're in it. They do know that we're in that 12,000 year cycle.
Sure.
Yeah. So they're also liars, and they aren't going to tell us anything. So we can only do what we can do to bring each other together, friends. And
Right. Our voices are so much more
they are.
so much more powerful. There's 8 billion of us, right? So we all just have to come to this understanding. Unfortunately, some things will have to happen because people are, deep in their sleep, stuck in their everyday 9 to 5, worried about their soap operas, worried about their sports team, worried about what's happening, who's debating who, and just completely consumed by the illusion. And those cataclysms are going to come around and wake a lot of people up, and everyone will look at each other and say, what's happening? And hopefully you're next to them to say, hey, have you heard what the Creative Society's been saying? Or have you heard about the 12,000 year cycle? Like, we gotta get moving here, like, so every chance I get, even if it's just a simple comment on, somebody's TikTok, or jumping on a live, or Sometimes I even just like I have a pinned post on my TikTok page. I'll throw a few bucks at it just to just get an extra few thousand views. And I go to Staples and I print out things like this, and it tells all about the cycle. It has QR codes to videos here. It talks about like our solutions. Oh, I'm inverted here. It talks about our solutions. All the forums are on the back. And when the earthquake hit my house, I grabbed about 100 of them and I started walking and I just started knocking on doors. Hey, did you guys feel that? Yeah, that's crazy shit. Well, you want to know why it's happening? Check this out. See you later. Right. I'm at house number 72. If you need me, if you have questions, come knock on my door. We'll have some coffee. Right. Like on to the next person, just door to door to door to door to door. Right. Some people told me to get the hell off their lawn. You know, some people actually came outside and spoke to me. Some people looked at me like I was a chicken without a head. Right. And it's like, okay, they know now. I
Yeah,
tried.
you sound like me. I'm weird. I do the weirdest stuff. People that don't, I warn people not to talk to me because it always comes up. I'll be like, hey, you should practice your survival skills because we're headed to Cataclysm soon. They'll be like, huh? I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
man. Do you hunt? Just take
Yeah.
up the hobby. And I'll just walk away,
Yeah.
but like, I think just doing what little we can each day, like you said, in the
If
moment, it
everyone
is
does a little,
liberating.
that's a whole lot.
It's liberating to just be in the moment and just say it could happen at any time. Like you said, we could see that article about us at any time. There could be any of us. And that's
Sure.
what I just want people to be at least somewhat prepared to take away that shock factor, because that's what's gonna really destroy people, is that they don't even know how to maintain and balance their own being. They get so swept away with whatever agenda, whatever's trending. They have no course of their own. They're just sheep following
Yeah.
whatever, this direction, that direction, and it's like, learn who you are so you can stand firm in your convictions and understand who you are, and your higher guidance, and
Sure.
get some discernment about you so that you can be okay if the chaos really does ensue. You don't lose your head about you.
Yeah. Well,
But
that's kind of the goal, right?
mhm.
Is to get people to invest their attention in things that don't matter. Um,
And
so
they do that.
rather than centering ourselves, rather than finding out who we are as humans, rather than building that discernment, we're just distracted. Our attention is divided in 1,000 different ways. And we're never taught, even, as kids, we should be taught how to invest our attention. But we don't. And, I think in that golden age, we certainly will learn. Um, but yeah, hopefully, this has been informing for you guys. In terms of resources, I definitely recommend checking out the Neutrino Energy Group, the Water from Air documentary on the Creative Society channel. Our latest forum, Global Crisis, The Responsibility, um, has all the information you need to know. There's also a climate report on the website. If you go to creativesociety.com and you go to the climate models tab, and then thanks, Dennis, and then you go to not the UN model, but there is a short form, 25 pages, and then like a 90 something page report, has all the analytics of everything made into graphs, so it's visually easy to understand. It's Anybody could read it. You don't have to be a scientist to get it. But what's in that climate report was explained in video at Global Crisis: The Responsibility. And we really just bring up, through animation and CGI and all of these things, like the exact processes that are happening. And yeah, I'm not going to lie to you guys, it's a tearjerker. I was not prepared for the footage that they were going to make me watch. But our team, because we're worldwide, they got right out on the disaster sites, and they were interviewing people and collecting footages. And what happened in Turkey you're talking about 50,000, mostly women and children, trapped under rubble after an earthquake, and no one comes to help. No one comes to help. And when you just see these people, and you know they're human just like you, and you know it could happen to you. Same thing in Libya, same thing in Hawaii, but nothing set up. You know, we explained in detail how there's a Navy base like 30 minutes away, right? But because it cost money, you just let people burn instead, right? Because it wasn't in the orders, it wasn't in the plans for the day, you just let people burn instead. Nearly 1,000 children missing. Like, all this shit is just, it's avoidable when we speak and we demand a structure to prepare us for these sorts of things. So unless our voices are heard, and that's one of the points we try and make, is we show these clips and like, yo, this is really happening. Like, let's not be ignorant to how this actually looks in real life. And then we explained, you know, the plans in terms of creating a unified scientific center, and the technologies that would be available if we can present this model of physics to the world. We're talking about the end of disease. We're talking about the end of hunger. It's literally like out of a science fiction movie, but it's what we would need to be in that golden age to take us out of this 12,000 year period of suffering that we've been in. The slave system that we've been in since ancient Sumerians. This is 6,000 years in the making. So there's a lot of work for us to do. So I hope some of this stuff has been informative and not too dreary for you guys. I know it's not the greatest news in the world. And I know that there's a lot of homework to do, and a lot of contemplating, and a lot of like, who the fuck, what the hell, you know, it's pretty intense stuff. I get it. I wrestled with it for months before I even reached out to the Creative Society and was like, hey, what can I do? Just thinking in my head, like, this can't be true. Like, there's no way. But we have all the tools we need. We have everything that we need. We have humans with souls. We have the technology. We have people, like groups like this, that are trying to find out who they are, trying to become more loving people, trying to get to the bottom of the truth. And they're speaking with each other from all across the planet. We literally have the technology for all of this. So I'm happy to take the opportunity with you guys. I guess if there's any more questions before I go, definitely happy to take them.
Anybody have any more
You're
questions?
muted.
Some of you guys are gonna have to take yourself off mute. 'Cause
Oh, I
can't
do.
see
I
everybody on
just
the
didn't want to.
screen.
I didn't want to be a pig for the time.
Oh.
It was interesting that you brought up the year 2036, and I'm not looking to dive down any other holes. Trust me, I'm just asking the question. Are you familiar with this Phoenix cycle? These Phoenix events? Because it ties right in with that year. It just happens to tie in with some other information that I came
No, what's
across.
that?
Well, there's this thing, these Phoenix events that apparently happen in 136-year periods, and they're like mini resets, small resets.
Mhm.
And yeah, we just see these different. I don't know. I don't want to get into it because it gets into a whole thing. But mudflood, what happened? When did this change happen? It certainly seems history is all bullshit. I don't know anything that they tell us. I mean, in my estimation, from everything that I've looked and I've read, but I was just curious. If you're not familiar with it, that's fine. It was interesting because that lines up with what this guy said, 2036, and I was like, huh.
Mhm.
I wonder if he knows about that. But anyway, it's another thing. So I'll let that go with that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll look into it. Thank you.
There's a guy that built up a lot of data. His channel is called Archaics. He was in the slammer for 20 years, and he got his hands on books from the 1600s, 1700s, 1800s. He was able to get all these old books, and he would just compile data. And basically what he showed was history is a mirror. Everything, he could just mirror the events and he would show the data that supported it. And it kind of put it to these mini cataclysms that happen. And sometimes they're major, they're worldwide, sometimes they're just in some areas. But again, it's a whole other subject. I'm sorry. Just when you said 2036, I was like, oh my God, that's what that dude says, you know? But at any rate, that's it. I'll let it go with that. I don't want us to throw another hole into people to dig into because we've all been down enough of them.
A
Right?
lot of rabbit holes in this group, I think.
Are you guys also working with people like Sasha Stone, who's talking a lot about like the med beds and other types of technologies?
Steve, are you working
Yeah,
with
sorry,
any-
brother. What was the question?
Oh, are you guys working collaboratively with people like Sasha Stone, who's also working on stuff with like med beds and technologies and creating like micronations and it's called the New Earth Project.
No.
Okay.
No, we don't do any sort of in terms of collaborating with other organizations, we don't do anything like that. Our volunteers have their own organizations, but in no way do we try and partner or have any financial ties in any way, simply because this is supposed to be like the most organic. People have to kind of come to it on its own sort of thing.
Okay.
Yeah, but there is something we present on our forums. I believe we did it on Global Crisis, the Responsibility, and another really good forum to check out is Global Crisis, There Is a Way Out. Now, that forum is different than the one that we did in Responsibility, because There Is a Way Out is actually 12 hours long. The first 6 hours is all about cataclysms, Mars, other sorts of things like that explain the climate situation. And then the second 6 hours is actually the creative society model of society, where we present a whole new model of the economy, a whole new model of the democratic process, a whole new model of healthcare, literally everything that you can possibly imagine that currently needs to change. We present an idea to people. But the whole concept is people have to want it.
That's right. I was just talking about that last night. It's a fruitless, effort to try and force people to do anything, because they have to initiate themselves on with that spark of desire to ever be anything, they have to want to do it, and so same thing here. Anybody else? Tammy?
Thank you. Thank you, Stephen, for joining us. We appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
I just wanted a reminder of the last thing you had said to watch, the Global Crisis.
So there are two forums I recommend. The latest one and probably most important one is Global Crisis, the Responsibility.
All right, and I think those are linked in the chat too, Tammy. So Dennis has been doing pretty good about linking stuff down there.
Yeah, thanks for that, Dennis. You've been on top of it,
Yeah,
man.
he's been on top of it. Dennis is on the job. Anybody else have any comments for Steve prior to his departure? Unmute and speak your piece. Anybody? Da. No, I guess it's just me and you, Steve. So this is gonna be c'est la vie. I'll see you around.
Definitely.
I definitely appreciate you joining us tonight, though. I felt like this was a great conversation, and I can't wait to share it with the people. I get a little bit discouraged because everything's always so shadowed. It's like, man, but as long as I can just, keep doing something, it does make me feel a little bit better, because at the end of the day, like we were just saying, it's people have to find it, and at least it's going to be out there for them to find when they do pull the thread. So we're,
sure.
you know, it's
Yeah.
not all for naught, definitely. So thanks again for joining us. I appreciate you taking the time and being just such a great speaker.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And yeah, thanks again for your guys' time and attention. Before I go, just a reminder about Agon's video, agonreport.org, in terms of the shit show that we're seeing in the US right now. Just know it's by design. It is meant to make you angry. It is
Yes.
meant to make you blame somebody. It is meant to make you want to throw a brick through a window because it's somebody's fault. Don't.
Be peaceful.
Peace. Don't. And if you watch the Agon video, you'll understand exactly how this method of mind control is happening. And Melody, you didn't even see it, but you used the cult word. And we see these puppets, call them journalists, call them mainstream media or people in government, but the strings, these people of influence, they work under the guise of anti-cult networks. It's literally what they call themselves. Why? Because when you create somebody who is a professional within those fields, you can label people that are talking outside the narrative as a cult. And then you can say that they're a threat, right? So we are going to see a lot of people with alternative opinions and a following be labeled in this way. And they will create the biggest smear campaigns on people thinking outside the box that you have ever seen. And these are the people that can bring about radical change in a good way. And they're the ones they want behind bars so that chaos can ensue, so that these ideas of peace and love and unity don't make it to the public. And we would be called the crazy ones.
Yep.
So
Until this time, this is what
right.
they do.
Exactly.
All the good loving souls, they'll come after you, just
Yeah.
like they did the Christ and all of
Mhm.
those before.
Yeah. So
So
don't
this
give them
is
what they
just
want, right?
the mode that this is what they do. So we're not going to give them the satisfaction. This is what I mean.
Yeah.
It's just like staying off the duality right now and focusing on your own being and what you can do as an individual to just be strong and prepare, and then maybe help somebody here and there if they're open to it.
Mhm.
But
That's it.
that's what we do, guys. We're just
That's what
gonna
you can
do, like, what about Bob? Baby steps, baby steps, baby steps. But except
Yeah.
we're kind of time sensitive here. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's kind of
Yeah.
a time sensitive project here, Steve.
Yeah.
We're
You're
we're
right.
running out of time. It's almost like time has sped up, which is what they said. They said time is sped up, and they've also said, did you hear that freaking little bit? They're like, the Earth's core is slowing down. Did you hear that little
I did
bit?
hear that one.
I'm like, what the heck? They just make this stuff up?
Yeah. I don't know how true that is, but
You know, they just make everything up.
yeah.
I think they just say whatever. But
It's like it's to bring attention to the core, but not for the real reason.
right.
Right.
Just
It's like they just give these little hints, these little drops, and then all of a sudden it's not, and all of a sudden the core is heating up, right? And then all of a sudden it's something else, and they don't reveal the truth
so
in
it's
full.
sneaky.
It's a slow drip, right? And guys, just take a look in terms of that slow drip, in terms of that predictive programming. Look at all the movies that have been coming out about Civil War, right? Look at all the movies that are post-apocalyptic and talk about cataclysms,
Mm-hmm.
right? This is just a
And
way
series.
of it's just predictive programming. The truth is in plain sight. We have solutions. We are the solution with the knowledge that, I try and share with everybody I know. But the best thing you guys can do is watch that Agon video so you understand that intel. Watch the fuel-free generator. That's what we call them, the free energy technology inventions. The atmospheric water generator is water from air documentary film or popular science film. And Global Crisis, The Responsibility. I know it sounds like a shit show. There are solutions. There are amazing people out there doing good things in the world, like this group, and by the millions. So don't feel like you're alone. Don't feel like you're, we may be swimming upstream, but there's a lot of us. And, together is really the only option. So, once again, I appreciate you
said,
guys.
friend.
Yeah,
I
much
love your
love to you guys.
soul.
Okay.
You're a gorgeous light, and I appreciate your time. And all of us, I'm sure, feel the same. And maybe we'll do it again sometime.
I hope so.
If you're up for it,
All right, guys. Take it
All
easy.
right. Bye, guys.
Thanks so much.